Hey, before we get started with this video, I want to go ahead and start off with a message from our sponsor, Absolutely Nobody, because enough of you aren't subscribing to the channel. So if you want to be annoyed with sponsors in the future and you want to feel the pressure of specific codes from me for you to get a cool discount on something you weren't even going to buy, then subscribe. Click that red button. It's big, it's red. Tap it, click it. You know you want to. It'll make me wet. Thank you. Hey. If you're still doubting the Xbox Series S as a contender in this next generation gaming landscape, I want you to go ahead and go purchase an Xbox Series S if you haven't already. And download the Matrix Awakens demo. It's a proof of concept tech demo. It is showing what the Unreal Engine 5 is capable of and the kind of games we can come to expect in the coming years on these new platforms, the Xbox Series X, the PlayStation 5, and the Xbox Series S. Yeah, the demo runs on that. And sure, you can say, oh, well, it's not in 4K. Oh, I had some frame rate drops during the big action sequences. But the graphical power alone, and to also take into consideration that the Series S isn't trying to be the all-in-one 4K 120 ray tracing and HDR and all this stuff. It's not trying to do that, but it can do that. And every gamer has a very specific setup, right? No gamer is the same. If we were all the same, well, we would be playing just one console. We wouldn't have multiple systems to choose from and different setups. This wouldn't be a community the way it is, right? And the Xbox Series S is the answer to that. Now, if you care about the latest and greatest, if you care about maybe just having a disk drive, maybe that is the deciding factor, then by all means, right? The Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 5 is going to be your ideal console. There's no way I can convince you otherwise. But if you're still on the fence, maybe you're coming from an Xbox One S, maybe even a PlayStation 4 Pro, even the Xbox One X, honestly, while yeah, it is in terms of raw graphic power technically more powerful, but that's just one little bit of the bigger picture when it comes to the Xbox Series S and the next gen gaming as a whole. The Xbox One X, for example, often runs games at around 30 frames per second. Sure, there's some games that run at 60, but then you're going to lose a little bit of resolution, or you're going to lose, maybe some graphic detail here and there. No system's going to output what they say it can do. It's like the EPA rating on a car. Yeah, your Honda Civic could get 45 miles to the gallon running at optimal temperature and ideal road conditions and everything with a perfect environment. You'll get that. You'll get those numbers. But the reality is, and each game is going to demand a specific thing. A game like Call of Duty is going to demand the best frame rate. That's what Call of Duty has always been known for in terms of its multiplayer experience. Even back on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 days, those games were running at 60 frames per second. That's what they knew you needed to enjoy that game the way it is. While a game like Battlefield, for example, would probably require more graphic intensive textures, things like that. We've accepted that Battlefield in the past has usually ran around 30 frames, maybe a little higher, maybe pushing 60, but in general we've accepted that, hey, these are bigger landscapes, there's more to load, there's more action going on. And with that being said, if you were to get an Xbox Series S and just try the Unreal Engine 5 tech demo, which is the Matrix Awakens. And I'm not a big fan. I don't know anything about the Matrix. I don't know. I didn't watch any of the movies. I'm relatively young, and it just wasn't there for me as growing up. So as the Matrix in general, it's not what I'm here for. I'm here for the just beaut that it is of seeing these graphical increases and seeing the capabilities. There's a reason this tech demo is not running on your Xbox One X, the most powerful console to exist last generation. But yet the weakest console of this generation, well, I guess unless you're including the Switch, but regardless of this ninth generation of gaming, we're on a whole different level, right? So if you needed proof that the Xbox Series S is a capable machine and worth a look at, especially while inventory for the PlayStation 5 and Series X is difficult to find, and it's going to get worse. I'm in the trucking industry. I see just on the transportation side of things, it's not getting better, let alone any supply chain issues in the factories in China or Taiwan or wherever it is these things are made, right? Let alone the assembly lines, let alone the working environments of the development teams making the software, because we're having, fluctuating things happening in the world. And not trying to get political with it, but it's just a fact. Things are not going to get better for the foreseeable future. We've had top people at large companies say, hey, I don't see an end to this in the next year. Could be another 2 or 3 years before you're able to see a PlayStation 5 on store shelves or an Xbox Series X. And mind you, those systems are competing with everything. The cars people drive, the trucks used to ship them. Those trucks need computer chips too, right? So if you're sitting there waiting and holding out, sure. But as games move towards an online age, more now than ever, you have games of service popping up almost everywhere. Almost every company is pushing towards this game that's ever going on, right? Warzone has proven that it's a concept that can be sustainable. Fortnite, sure, the Battle Royale thing itself can be a little wishy-washy, but that concept of having an ongoing game that just keeps growing and moving on instead of releasing an annual game or every few years, we're going to see that more. And the longer you wait to get a next-gen system, the more you're gonna, be missing out on those experiences. And for some, that's just fine. I get that. But for a lot of you that are just sitting there waiting on the fence saying, hey, I want a next-gen, but the Series S, I don't want that, then, just stop. Look at it. Go check it out. Watch some videos of it, playing on the Series S. It blows my mind that this system is able to perform the way it does. And like I said before, it really does offer a specific use case for each gamer. Some gamers, such as myself, I play on a 1080p monitor. Yes, my monitor is overkill in terms of refresh rate, but it has FreeSync, which more than helps out with the Series S. Yeah, you may say, the Series S drops frames here and there. Might go from 120 to 90 in some games, or even 80. But you know what? The FreeSync, it's not. That's an individual number on its own. When you take in consideration the technologies that exist, not only in the system but the monitors, the refresh rate is fine on all the games that I personally play. And I play first-person shooters and racing games, the games that really need those frame rates. And if you worry about 4K, I've had my Xbox Series S connected to a 4K TV, 65-inch TCL 6 series, outputting 1440p, upscaling to 4K on most of the games that I played. It looks fine. especially if you're coming from a PS4 Pro, it's going to look better than that. So if you think the PS4 Pro's 4K looked good, the Series S isn't going to slouch. I promise you that. And the speeds of the SSD, loading times, that within itself is a major upgrade. If anyone tells you that you can put a SSD in an Xbox One X and boom, that is going to be a better experience than the Xbox Series S because it also has an SSD, we're not talking about the same technology there. We're not talking about the same speeds. Okay? So you can say that all you want, thinking that it's going to make a difference. I put an SSD in my PlayStation 4 Pro before I got the PS5, and it still didn't compete. So that whole thought process, there's a lot more that goes into it than just upgrading the memory, okay? And that's really all there is to it, honestly. After checking out the Matrix Awakens, I couldn't not say something. It blew me away that that was a thing that exists on a $300 box you could connect to a TV or a monitor on a desk, plug and play, and so many games support keyboard and mouse. So if your argument is I play on PC because keyboard and mouse, I mean, consoles have been offering keyboard and mouse support for a while now. It's just up to the games to support that. And yeah, there's many that don't. But don't let your peripherals decide, hold you back. Especially if you're just waiting to get your hands on maybe your graphics card and your PC is barely hanging on there. And you're sitting there trying to find a 3080, 3090, whatever it is, if that's your goal, and you don't want to spend $1,100, $800, I've seen them go up to almost $2,000 on the dumbest markets because people just don't care. They have no shame. But you can get a Series S for $300. It's an all-in-one package. And for $300, I feel like that's a pretty good price to have a stopgap, right, in your gaming experience, especially if you're on PC. The Xbox is the best companion console to have with that because of Game Pass. It just works. So this is me telling you again that you should definitely check out the Xbox Series S. I won't tell you to buy it because obviously it's your money, it's your situation. Everyone's position is different in the world right now. But if you're sitting there saying, I'm not going to get the Xbox Series S solely for the lack of frame rates or 4K or anything like that, one individual thing, the one individual thing you may really care about, I guarantee you it does that. Don't just listen to what any of these YouTubers say on even articles. They go on and on. They get into the nitty-gritty to the things that do not matter when you're playing the game. The horsepower of the engine does not matter when you're just trying to get to work. Okay? I'll see you in the next one.